The city of Denver is planning a new tax that would force landlords to pay for eviction lawyers for tenants. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of Denver, Colorado. Obviously, Denver is one of those more progressive places where they have all this anti-landlord legislation that they've been trying to pass to really, I guess, stick it to the landlords, because in their minds, they're going to follow the same failing policies that all the coastal cities have used to basically make the real estate market extremely expensive for tenants and very hard to do business for landlords. So the city of Denver actually, they have a proposal out there for this new tax, right? And this tax will only be paid by landlords. And you know what the tax is going to do? It's going to pay for an eviction defense fund. So what they're saying is they want landlords, right, to pay for lawyers for tenants so that they can fight their evictions. Now, to me, this is just wrong. This is dead wrong, okay? If they believe that tenants need lawyers, why are you forcing the landlords, the ones who may be fighting their cases, lawfully, and the person is being evicted for a lawful reason, and then forcing that person to pay for a lawyer for the tenant? I mean, this is insane, okay? That would be, just stupid. Everyone who looks at any sort of law like this would be like, hey, this is stupid. This doesn't make any sense, And, I'm not for it, okay? I keep telling you that every time they pass a little law or tax or something like that, guess where the costs are really going to go, okay? They're going to go to those tenants. And no longer will landlords put just anybody up into their units anymore. They're going to, make their criteria so tight that what we want is to minimize the number of evictions in the first place, okay? And when we have these evictions happening, well, we don't want to get completely screwed over because we have to spend thousands of dollars to take somebody to eviction court. Okay, and now on top of that, we have to be taxed too. This is so stupid. Anyway, before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think, okay? In your city or the place where you invest or where you own a rental property, is there an eviction defense fund, or is there some kind of government funding that provides free lawyers to tenants? I'm just curious, okay? And what do you think of this sort of law where they're going to basically tax the landlord and then use our money to pay for lawyers for tenants? I think it's dumb, but maybe there is a good justification out there. I know that there are some tenants who watch my videos because I read the comments, okay, and I've seen the angry comments in there. And you know what? I don't mind if you watch my videos. I'm giving the perspective of a property owner, a landlord who's running a real estate business, okay? I'm not giving the perspective of the tenant. You can get that from every major news publication, and they don't like writing about us, because when the truth actually comes out, then a lot of people, they're not satisfied. It's hard to write a hard luck story about a person who owns a house, but there are hard luck stories for people like us. We don't make up the majority, but we offer a service and a product that a lot of people need, and it doesn't help anyone when you're basically disincentivizing landlords from wanting to run rental properties, okay? So let's get into this article and see what it says. This article is coming from 9news.com, and it says, Denver Initiative 305, landlord tax to fund eviction defenses. Voters in Denver will see a new tax on the ballot that would fund eviction defenses, which rose back to pre-pandemic levels. Yeah, they're like, oh, well, you know what? During the pandemic, there weren't that many evictions going on. Yeah, that's because legally, landlords couldn't evict anybody. Well, so yeah, the eviction levels are going to go back to the way they were before the pandemic. What'd you expect? Did you think that landlords were just going to, we're going to just eat those losses going on forward for the rest of the time? No, that's stupid, and they should have realized that eventually things would have to go back to normal. But let's continue. Denver voters will decide next month whether to levy a special new tax on landlords that would create a legal defense fund for tenants in the city facing eviction. The initiative, sponsored by a group called No Eviction Without Representation Denver, would begin with a $75 yearly tax, which would be tied to inflation. The money would be pooled into the legal fund for any resident in the city. The way that this works right now is that it's treated almost as an automatic product, Ren Echo, an organizer with NEWR Denver, said. Less than 1% of tenants have legal representation. About 75% of them never show up to court. So what we have happening is these people are scared. They're vulnerable. So they talk to some tenants' rights person, right? And the tenant right person is, putting that same narrative out there as though, oh, well, these are just poor victims who are being evicted for no reason. No, the grand majority of tenants who are in the eviction process are there for not paying rent. I mean, I'm talking about the overwhelming majority are there for not paying. Okay? These people don't have a case to fight. They are not paying their rent. They need to go. And rather than just leaving, they're sitting there and the landlord has to take them to court to kick them out. The landlord cannot pay someone else's bills. That is not the way that life works. You can't force somebody else to pay your bills for you. And that includes your landlord. The landlord has no obligation to be a free housing provider for the homeless or for the low income. And this is the ridiculous sort of law that they want passed. They want, we're going to, get these free lawyers, right? I don't get a free lawyer. I spent thousands of dollars paying for legal representation so that I could go through the eviction process. And you know what? I don't get any of that money back. None of it. Okay, it's just gone for me. Meanwhile, you want me not only to pay thousands of dollars for my own lawyer, but then I got to pay a special tax so that you can get a free lawyer. No, okay? This is ridiculous. The process is very opaque and they don't know their rights, Echo said. A 9 News analysis of eviction filings in Denver County Court found there have been 5,885 eviction filings so far this year, more than the total filings for 2020 and 2021, marking a return to pre-pandemic levels. There were typically 272 filings per month in 2020 and 357 in 2021 from January through September. In 2022, there have typically been 634 eviction filings per month. Eviction is the huge precursor of homelessness, Echo said. It can be this huge destabilizing element for most of people's lives. So yeah, this person, just talking the same garbage. Oh, eviction is the thing that is causing homelessness. It's garbage, okay? It's garbage. I've pulled the real stats out that, I got them from New York, who actually was tracking this thing. And the people who are in the homeless shelter in New York, only like 2% of them actually were in there because they were evicted. And the grand majority of the others were in there for other reasons. This is a good indication that, hey, this lie that they say about people who get evicted all end up homeless, it's a lie. It's just a talking point so that they can try to push all these ridiculous laws onto landlords. Okay, and you know what? Like I said, this $75 tax, if they charge it, well, guess what? If the rent before was $1,000 a month, now it's going to be $1,000 or $1,075 because I got to pay this stupid tax. Okay, and if the tenants before, if I let them in with maybe a 650 credit score before, well, now it's 700 or 750 because I don't want to have to go through all this nonsense. And knowing that, hey, they're going to have a lawyer representing them in court every single time I go to court, it's going to cost me even more in legal fees. So maybe I might even bump my rent up a couple $100 a month to cover all the legal costs I would have to pay if I end up in eviction court. See, this is why housing is unaffordable. This is why people don't want to be landlords. This is why there is a rental property shortage in places that are, very progressive with all these anti-landlord laws. And they don't seem to understand that. Opponents of the initiative have nearly doubled the funds raised by the proponents. The biggest spender in the race so far is the Apartment Association, which represents landlords. Our position is that it's bad policy for the government to use taxpayer funds to pay private citizens to sue each other in civil court, said Destiny Bossert, a lobbyist with the Apartment Association. We should be focusing on real solutions like the lack of supply. Even rental assistance, we feel, would be more effective in this case. I agree with that, okay? I'm not a fan of rental assistance, but it would actually help keep people housed, okay? And I also agree with the fact where we shouldn't be paying one side's lawyer fees in a private civil matter between two different parties, okay? That would be like you saying, okay, I'm suing McDonald's because I got burned by hot coffee, but the government should pay for my lawyer and McDonald's should have to pay for their own. No, you pay for your own lawyer, okay? If you're going to throw a frivolous lawsuit up there, and I will pay for my own lawyer. And that way the sides are evenly, funded. Keep in mind, they put this sort of law in place because they say, oh, well, tenants are low income. They can't afford the lawyer. But did they actually... What about the landlords who can't afford the lawyers, okay? Not all landlords are wealthy. That's another thing they always forget when they put these laws in place. There are so many landlords out there, and people, they don't consider them landlords. They think, oh, well, all landlords own huge apartment complexes or hundreds of houses. Well, the guy who is renting the spare bedroom in his house, guess what? He's a landlord. The person who is renting the house they used to live in, and moved out of temporarily while they're traveling the country, guess what? They're a landlord. Okay, you can own one property and rent it out, and you are now a landlord, and now you may have to go through this eviction process. So what you end up with is there's people who are pretty lower income, right? And they are landlords, and they end up in these eviction courts, and they have to follow all the same rules as those multi-millionaires and billionaires who are also landlords, okay? That's why I say we cannot have these sort of laws in place, because they punish the smallest of the landlords the worst. They're the ones who take the brunt of all of these laws, and they end up the ones who are in financial distress. So I hope that the voters in Denver, they use common sense and logic, and they do not pass this law, okay? This will end up hurting more than it helps anyone.